In 1912, Villisca, Iowa, was a small, close-knit farming town with a population of about 2,000 people. Everyone knew each other, and crime was virtually non-existent. At the center of this community was the Moore family, led by Josiah, 43, and Sarah Moore, 39. They were a well-respected family, active in the Presbyterian Church, and Josiah was a successful businessman, owning and operating a local implement store. The couple had 4 children: Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5. The Moore children were well-liked, and their home was often a gathering place for friends and neighbors. Sunday, June 9, 1912, began like any other day for the Moore family. They attended church, where Sarah was leading a Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church. After the program, the family stayed at the church for several hours, socializing with other parishioners. With them that evening were 2 friends of Catherine, Lena, 12, and Ina Stillinger, 8, who were invited to spend the night at the Moore home. It was a pleasant evening filled with laughter and community spirit. By around 9:30 p.m., the Moore family and the Stillinger girls made their way back to the Moore residence. They locked up the house for the night, expecting nothing unusual would happen. The Moore's home was a modest, 2-story white house located at 508 East 2nd Street. Upstairs were the bedrooms where the family and their young guests slept. They all retired to their beds, completely unaware of the horror that awaited them. The next morning, at around 7 a.m., their neighbor Mary Peckham became concerned when she noticed that none of the Moores had come out to begin their daily chores. Mary knocked on their door but received no answer. She tried to open the door but found it locked. Growing more worried, she called Josiah Moore's brother, Ross Moore, and asked him to come over to check on the family. Ross arrived shortly after, unlocking the door with his key. What he found inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. Upon entering, Ross immediately noticed an eerie silence in the house. He walked into the guest bedroom on the ground floor and discovered a gruesome scene. The bodies of Lena and Ina Stillinger lay on the bed, covered with a sheet. Their heads had been brutally smashed in, and blood soaked the pillows and bed sheets. Horrified, Ross ran outside and called for help. The local marshal, Hank Horton, was called to the scene. He entered the house and systematically checked each room. Upstairs, he discovered an even more horrifying sight. The entire Moore family had been murdered in their beds. Josiah and Sarah Moore had been bludgeoned to death in their bedroom, their faces unrecognizable from the repeated blows. Josiah's head had suffered the worst. His skull had been shattered, his eyes gouged out. Sarah, too, had been struck multiple times in the head. In the adjacent room, the 4 Moore children had been killed in their sleep. Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul all lay lifeless, their faces covered with blankets or clothing, their skulls crushed by the killer's repeated blows. The entire house was stained with blood. The walls, ceilings, and floors were spattered with it, and the killer had left deep gashes in the ceiling from swinging the axe. The investigation revealed that the weapon used was an axe that had been taken from the Moore's backyard. The killer had used the blunt end of the axe, smashing in the skulls of each victim with shocking brutality. Investigators noted that Josiah seemed to have been the main target, as he was struck far more times than the other victims. Each of the victims had been struck while they were asleep, and their faces were covered after death, possibly indicating that the killer could not bear to look at what he had done. After the murders, the killer had taken time to wash up in the house, leaving a basin of bloody water in the kitchen. Even more strangely, a slab of uncooked bacon was found next to the axe, wrapped in a towel. No one could explain the significance of this bizarre detail. A kerosene lamp was found at the foot of the bed in the master bedroom, its chimney removed and placed under the dresser. The wick had been turned down so low that it provided only a faint glow. It appeared that the killer had lit the lamp to carry out the murders in near darkness. The attic of the house also revealed disturbing clues. A partially smoked cigarette butt was found there, leading investigators to believe that the killer had been hiding in the attic, waiting for the family to fall asleep before descending to carry out the massacre. Autopsies revealed that all 8 victims had been killed between midnight and 5 a.m. Lena Stillinger, one of the guests, showed signs of having fought back. Unlike the others, she had defensive wounds on her arms, and her body had been moved post-mortem. Her nightgown was pushed up, suggesting a possible sexual assault, though no direct evidence of rape was found. The killer had taken extreme care to cover the windows and mirrors in the house with sheets or blankets, as if trying to block out any reflections. This added to the sense that the killer was acting with methodical precision, despite the extreme brutality of the murders. Word of the crime spread quickly, and soon the quiet town of Villisca was overrun by locals and curious onlookers, all horrified by the event. The crime scene was unfortunately compromised by people trampling through the house, and key evidence may have been lost as a result. The case attracted national attention, and a lengthy investigation followed. Several suspects were questioned, but no one was ever convicted. One of the most notorious suspects was Reverend George Kelly, an itinerant preacher who had been in Villisca the night of the murders. Kelly was a peculiar man, known for his erratic behavior and bizarre statements. He left Villisca the morning after the murders, and over time, he became obsessed with the case, even writing letters to police and investigators. In 1917, Kelly was arrested and confessed to the murders, claiming that God had directed him to kill the Moore family. However, his confession was inconsistent and later recanted. He was tried twice for the crime. The first trial resulted in a hung jury, and the second ended in an acquittal. Many believed Kelly's confession was the result of mental illness rather than guilt. Another suspect was Frank F. Jones, a prominent Villisca resident and state senator. Josiah Moore had worked for Jones in the past but had left to open his own business, taking key clients with him, which led to a bitter rivalry between the two men. Rumors circulated that Jones had hired a hitman to eliminate Moore and his family, though no concrete evidence was ever found to support this theory. William Mansfield, a suspected serial killer, was also considered a suspect. Mansfield had been linked to similar axe murders in Illinois, Kansas, and Colorado, where entire families were slaughtered in their homes in a manner eerily similar to the Villisca murders. Despite the circumstantial evidence connecting him to the crime, Mansfield was never charged, and his involvement remains speculative. The Villisca axe murders remain unsolved to this day, and the town has never fully recovered from the terror that struck over a century ago. The Moore home has since been restored to its original condition and is now a museum, attracting visitors and paranormal investigators. Many claim the house is haunted by the spirits of the Moore family and the Stillinger girls. Visitors report hearing footsteps, whispers, and children's laughter, and some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving through the house. The haunted atmosphere adds another layer of horror to the tragic tale, as the unsolved mystery continues to grip the imaginations of those who visit. The Villisca axe murders stand as one of the most brutal and perplexing unsolved crimes in American history. 8 innocent people were savagely murdered in their sleep, and despite decades of investigation, the identity of the killer remains unknown. The fear and uncertainty that gripped the town in 1912 have never fully subsided, leaving behind a legacy of terror that still haunts Villisca, Iowa, to this day.